Welcome to Modern Anarchy, the podcast featuring real conversations with conscious objectors to the status quo. I'm your host, Nicole.
I tried to keep her quiet, but she's screaming inside of me. I tried to keep her hiding, oh, shut up. I tried to keep her quiet, but she's a wild, wild woman.
On today's episode, we have an amazing human being. Kelly joins us for a raw and honest conversation about her experience with HPV and navigating this world with anxiety. Together, we explore the paradox of our fear of perception with our need to be seen, especially in a time of social media. This is a Mr. Toad's wild ride of a conversation, as per most of these conversations on here, but that's how I like it. And also, I just want to say, part of the show, there is no requirement to be on it. There is nothing you need to do, produce in this world, no job you need to have. Each person, I truly do believe, that is living their life authentically has truth to be told, and that should be shared with the world. So, hey, maybe you'll be on the podcast next. All you got to do is get invited by a friend who's been on it. So I think it's beautiful to honor the diversity of the lived experience of people, and truly no one will ever have the unique combination of history, moments, and memories that you do have as a human being. And so that's incredibly beautiful and unique in my opinion. So tune in. I don't really know where to start other than that. We're going to talk about HPV.
Yeah, we are going to talk about HPV. Oh gosh, I almost want to leave a timeline out because it's kind of irrelevant.
Whatever you feel like.
Yeah.
What would you tell me as your friend?
God, and I need a question. Yeah, you're asking me what would I tell you?
For sure. Okay, so you've had HPV.
Or I currently have it. I don't understand that. It's like no matter as many things, because it's a virus. So it's like, it's technically, is it with you your entire life? You can have it removed. It can potentially come back at other points. Sometimes people get HPV and it like passes through perfectly through their immune system. So I'm not like... We could fill in this, I'm not a doctor, all those things.
Right,
but
of course.
Yeah, there's some aspect of it that it's really hard to understand because it seems like I read something different every time. But I currently have clear PAPs, which means that like I technically don't have any testable HPV. Like no, if I went somewhere random, like they wouldn't be able to say that I have HPV because my PAPs are clear.
Interesting.
And not abnormal anymore. So,
but like it could come back at any time.
Yeah. Like, I could one day eventually have an abnormal PAP again and need an additional LEEP procedure, which happens to some people. But if I'm getting, like, my, biannual, or I've heard like, you're supposed to get a PAP, like, every 3 years now, apparently, with normal PAPs, which kind of makes me nervous because I would want to know sooner than that. But, as long as I keep up with those, it's kind of just, like, a yearly screening. And cervical cancer is, like, a really slowly progressing thing. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of time to catch it in the meantime. So it's kind of like a lower risk cancer situation. Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of weight to hold, though, because then you're constantly in the state of like, is my body healthy?
Yeah. For some reason, I feel very empowered in the fact that since I've been through the process before, that it is manageable again. And as long as I'm diligent with my yearly screenings, then I'm going to be okay. Like, I don't think I hold a lot of fear. I did it first, for sure. But the more I learned about it, I think the more I accepted that it's just kind of part of my health journey at this point, which it's a possibility for anybody getting an annual PAP, and that I have the tools to manage it again if it does occur again.
What was that experience like, if you're willing to share?
Yeah, the original... so I was around like 21 and I was like, okay, I've had a lot of sexual partners at this point. Literally hadn't had a single like STI screening at that point. I decided I would get my first annual PAP and just have them do everything. And like everything was great. Like I got all my blood tested. I was positive that I had gotten everything back and everything was clear. And then about like a month later, I get a call from the gynecologist, and he was in like my college town, and I was already back home for the summer. And he was like, hey, like you had some like an abnormal, like abnormal cells or precancerous cells is what they call them. And they're on a like a little graph of like low, medium, high, or whatever situation. And I was on like the medium high risk.
Oh.
Yeah. So he was like, you're going to have to get a colposcopy. That's like an additional procedure where they just take a little bit more of your cervix than they would for like a pap. So it's kind of more of like a biopsy situation. Yeah. And from that, they were able to tell like exactly where my like cells were on that level. And then that's when they determined that I would need an additional procedure after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was it to take in that information?
It was horrible. Yeah. At first I was, cause I was kind of caught off guard. And if we're open, I'll share where I was at like sexually at that point. I had multiple partners that year and none of them were like very great interactions. And then like literally the day I got that call from the guy, I had just taken a plan B because some guy had like non-consensually decided to not pull out, like, and it was horrible. God. Yeah. So I was in this, it was this very like all coming together at once moment of me realizing that I had not been like an advocate for myself and been a safe place for myself to have those experiences. Yeah. So it was a kind of an awakening, and I was like, I've got my back right now.
Wow.
And I just chose that from then on out. I was like, I'm gonna like get myself through this. I will heal. It'll be okay. And I kind of like didn't feel the very raw emotions in the moment, but like I definitely like gave myself forgiveness very very quickly. Yes.
Yeah. I can feel the pain.
Yeah.
As you talk about it. I guess I just want to hold space for that.
Yeah.
Because that's really hard. I feel like there's such a stigma with these sorts of things that like to open up to other people in your life that this is what is happening. Like the stigma makes it so isolating to face alone.
And I had a close friend from childhood who contracted like a STI from her first partner. And that was like very early on in my teens. Like we were able to support each other through that. And or like we weren't close like when this happened to me, but like it was early for me to have a personal experience to see like how destigmatized STIs need to become. Because it's so out of our control.
For sure.
And we relinquish power to people, and sometimes they don't even know what's happening. And you can spend a lot of time trying to pinpoint specific moments where you took an unnecessary risk or you want to regret something, but it's kind of just, it's one of those things that's unfortunately in a lot of ways out of our control. Like there are obviously barriers and things like that are able to be utilized, but you can sometimes still contract STIs regardless of how safe you're being as well.
Or even like people that have HPV pass from their mothers, right?
It can happen with like herpes and HIV and a few other things. So I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Because I think that's why they say that males should get the vaccine. Because they could have it and it goes undetected in male bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And they can still be carriers. Exactly. Yeah, there's no test. Carriers. I think there is some sort of like anal swab for HPV for men, but I think it's a similar situation with the PAP where you would have to be showing those abnormal cells. Because I think you can have HPV and have it be undetectable too. Yeah. So it's kind of, I know. I might be saying a bunch of bullshit though too, but this is like this is a layman's version of like searching on Wikipedia. And this is like, honestly, my doctors really didn't talk to me about it very much either because it was such an in and out situation too.
Exactly. Well, because that's half the battle. Where do you go to find out the resources about these sorts of things without finding something that's going to make you feel like shit? And then we go to Reddit pages, like when you first start feeling symptoms of something and you're like, is this normal? And that's not the best community to be asking those questions.
No, and there's like a really high percentage of sexually active adults that have HPV or have contracted it at some point in their lives. Like I think it's over 50%.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, just reading that statistic off the bat, I was like, oh, so that's like literally anybody.
Yep.
And even my mom was like, she was really helpful through it all. Wow. That was really nice to have her. And she was like, don't worry about it. Like these things happen. Like I had something similar like earlier on in life. And like my dad was kind of like, why would you? Like you need to be safe about that stuff. Of course, like he had to find out because it was just such a weird, you're at that age where you're not like fully autonomous with your health yet because you're like someone else is paying your insurance.
Right, exactly. It's going to show up on the bill.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So that was like, I was like, fuck all y'all. Like this is my own thing. I've got my back. Like, but my mom was very supportive and helpful. So,
but that's still very powerful.
yeah.
I think like a lot of other people could have taken that a different way. Like there could have been a lot of shame, pity.
Yeah, I just didn't have any left for myself. I was coming off of like a really long depression that I had finally been pulling myself up out of, and I was just like, you know what? We're just gonna do our best with this.
Yeah.
I definitely like closed down like sexually for a while, and like I was like starting a relationship with someone at that point, and I like just cut it off before we were even able to get sexual, because I was just like, I don't know what this is. I have no idea what's going on. I'm really freaked out, and I don't want anyone touching me. But yeah.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I definitely did like feel, and I was nervous and scared about like passing something to other people, and not really knowing what it was, or like it. Well, and I hadn't had the Gardasil shot at this point. So when I was in high school, I was supposed to get it, and my dad was kind of like a little anti-vax. And, like, I just kind of talked to him about it, and I was hesitant about getting it. I didn't get Gardasil.
Oh, no.
And then when I found out about all of this, I ended up getting it after, just to protect myself from other strains of HPV. So, but I don't know if it would have been one that Gardasil, but that was, like, a protection I didn't get to participate in, because vaccines are awesome and they save lives.
Right, exactly.
And that's the only cancer that there is a vaccine. Like, that's the only vaccine that can prevent cancer.
I know, and so many people don't get it.
Yeah. No, it's so important.
Well, yeah, my mom didn't want to give it to me either, because at the time she was like, well, you're not having sex, so you don't need it.
Yeah. Or they're like, well, and it causes blood clots. And it's like, yeah, so does birth control. So does everything that you've had me on since I was like 13 years old. So, yeah.
I think it is because this is like a sexually related thing that it's got such a difficulty to be like, oh, I gave my child this vaccine. Like it's admitting that your child is sexually active, and a lot of other
God forbid humans
I know
having sex.
I thought that's how they made humans. Wait.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's in separate rooms. It's all with tubes. Yeah.
Hilarious. I mean, that's how we treat it, though. It's definitely like, no one wants to talk about it. But that's why also I would like, you were beginning to tell me a little bit about what it looked like, or what it felt like, and all of the actual experience.
Yeah. About
what it was like maybe to like find out you had it, the symptoms post-sex with your partner. Like there's so much here of like emotional growth and new identities and learning and changing.
Yeah. And I like I said, I didn't have sex with anybody for like many months. I had met Drew, was my first partner I ever had sex with after I had the procedure.
Wow.
And so we had dated for, and we like, it was a very long process, and I was able to talk to him about it beforehand. And I was like, oh, an STD. And he was like, oh, you mean STI. And he like corrected me. And he knew like a bunch about HPV. And he was just like, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's like, he was like, I would take on any risk to be able to be like with you. Kind of was his like perspective. And like, yeah, which is,
the most romantic thing I've ever heard.
And it's also like maybe, you never know. And we had dated for a long time, and like we were both committed, and I felt safe like opening up about that.
Yeah.
Because it was scary. It was terrifying. And like I had gone from being like very like sexually active, but like still obviously very afraid to like ask for protection for myself and like all of those things. And then I jumped into this situation where the person was so willing to give it to me freely. It was like, oh, I can have sex again and it'll be great. And it was like the first time I was like orgasming regularly and like actually having good sex. So it was like, I got to go straight from like this like dry spell, horrible experience into like having really great loving sex for the first time.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it was very healing.
Let's reset up.
I've been talking for so long.
No, this is beautiful. You're doing a great job, by the way.
Yeah.
As you were speaking about sex and like all these different things of having to space to ask for like what you want, what you need, I was just thinking about this quote about when I do podcasts of just, there is always a conversation that just the two people in that room can have.
Yeah.
And we don't have to do this. Just the conversation of our like sexual trauma is probably some of the deepest thing that like I've ever found in someone who could understand that.
Yeah.
We could make a very powerful episode about sexual trauma. That's a whole different space. Then it's not just HPV. Then I would speak with you, but like I don't know if that's what we want to do. But like I think it could help a lot of people.
I think we could ride the wave.
Yeah, it makes me nervous.
Or we could fit it in where it feels natural.
Well, I feel like this is the conversation, though, because you're already starting to talk about it, about how, like, that was linked to communicating what you needed in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
If we continue to have this conversation, we're dancing around the inherent trauma that has shaped our sexuality.
Let's see where it leads.
This is a different space. How do you feel? And you can say either way, because I also want to recognize, like, there's a lot to talk about your HPV, and I want to give you the space to feel the pump up and all of that, too.
I'm trying to think what this transition would be. Or do you want to just move on to that?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I think of, like, all people that I could have that conversation with, you're probably the only person who would understand and, like, feel it and have we're not required to help other survivors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's not a job we have to do. I haven't talked about being a survivor on this podcast.
Do you want to?
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, because I feel like it's a part of my identity. It's a part of my strength.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I started this podcast. I don't know if I explained that to you.
Mm-hmm. You did, but do you want to explain it again?
To the listeners. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the person who assaulted me had reached out after like 4 years of silence, and it was so incredibly triggering. See, I don't even think I can look you in the eyes when I do this.
Yeah, you don't need to.
It was so incredibly triggering. The reality of them reaching out after like having your headspace of like developing space from that person ever popping in. Do you know what I mean? Exes, right? Like, you don't always think about them. Like, it could pass by, but like they're just not there. And so then to get like a message out of the blue from the person who did assault you, it felt like my brain was being assaulted, of just like showing up into my space of like happiness I had cultivated after years of processing this stuff. Half of me was like, well, that's stupid. He wasn't in your space. It was just a message. That's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah, but like, that's not...
Well, of course, at the time, I'm like, it's not like he came on to me. It's not like he was even in my real life. He just sent me a message. How dare I get so upset?
But you're right. It's like you're the shattered...
Yeah.
It just shatters things. I have this going right now, and it feels great. And then all of a sudden, just to like... It's not even like they take the rug out from underneath you, but it's like...
Hello? And you're like, oh my God.
You're like, oh, shit can really fucking suck. Yeah. I forgot for a second.
Yeah, like that person ruined my... I will never say ruined, but made things so much harder for me. God, to learn. And I mean, I think it's it's definitely part of who I am today. But like, later that day too, that same day that person reached out, sitting in this drum circle, and this old man got up in my space, just got closer, sat closer, and like was putting his face way too close to me. And instantly I started feeling uncomfortable. But then my brain internal thought process was like, don't be afraid. You're in a park. It's daylight. He's not coming on to you. Why are you freaking out? You're like letting your trauma get to you. You know, already not self-compassion. And I just kept tensing even more. And he got like so close. He was like right behind my shoulder. And the date later was like, are you okay? Like, that man was really up in your space. I was like, no, like, I'm not okay. Those two things happening at the same time, I literally got back to my house and I just sobbed once I was alone. Felt so unsafe in my own space. I found out the man who assaulted me had moved to my city. He's been in a different city this whole time. That's giving me space and healing. I was so afraid. So I just like literally went for a walk and I tried to think about like my strength and like the things I have in this community that I've built here and everything, because this is not his city.
No.
Even though he's, you know, from this city. But it's not his.
Mm-mm.
I know. And so then I was thinking to myself, what are the things that I want to do that I'm too afraid to just do, but I know I want to do them? I want to start a podcast. And I want to go camping by myself. And so now I
You've
done
done them both? Yes, you're doing an excellent job.
Oh my God. That's all I'm trying to do is like, what are the things I want to do? I'm just going to do it. Why not? Who's stopping me? Who's saying I can't do these things?
Only you.
I know.
Yeah. Isn't that so scary when you're like, I am in charge of every piece of my reality? Sometimes, like, obviously there are external factors, but like making the decisions of like taking action, and you're like, oh fuck, I can do like, it's like literally choose your own adventure.
Yeah. It's weird to not have said that on the podcast, because it's like, oh, why did you make the podcast? Well, I was assaulted and I learned and I grew and I changed as a person. I dropped my Christianity. I had to relearn sex, like so many things. Yeah.
It's a horrible tragedy that somehow, I don't know. It's amazing that you've been able to make beautiful things and like find healing and use your creative energy to like.
But even as you say that, you know, we both were talking earlier about how like even now where I'm at today, males coming into my space is hard.
Yeah.
I just clench up in my body, and that's so, it feels so subconscious.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
But I think it's you can't hate
I know.
your own physical trauma response.
I know, because compassion is what will let it go, right? But it's like I want to love and not feel fear, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I know, I'm trying to be vulnerable, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's hard.
I wish I could ask better questions. I'm like trying to think, but there's no way to like probe those things. You know?
Can.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I know you love me, so I'm not knowing, I trust that whatever you're asking is of good intentions and not ever going to lead me down something of pain.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that.
Especially because I ask that all the time. I'm like, what's the right things to say? And like my therapist is always like, sometimes there is no right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to accept that. And sometimes you make mistakes, and then you do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
for
like,
sure.
Yeah.
What about choosing to do the things that you've wanted to do feels healing for you?
I bet you it's power. The way that you said it immediately, I'm reclaiming. There's things in my life that I'm like, why am I not doing them? Oh, because society says you're a woman, so you can't like this hobby. I might have told myself I couldn't do a podcast. You know what I mean? It's in those moments, can I reclaim power here? Those first moves never feel like the right time. You just do it.
And it's like doesn't feel right for a while,
yes.
right? Like
no.
At what point do you feel like you were like, okay,
of what?
Walking down your podcast path?
Hilarious. That what? Of like I'm what?
That you're like, I can do things. I can say stuff. Or was it like in that moment that you decided that you were going to do it? That you were like, okay.
No, I still don't know if I'm doing this. Like I'm sitting here right now. I'm like, am I doing this?
What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, more so like, are people actually listening to me? And like the answer is yes. And that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. And people compliment me on it. And I'm like, I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just speak. I don't know. But that's imposter syndrome. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I think that's exactly what that is.
I mean, you're also leading me now. How does it feel to lead me?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's where it was.
It's like,
welcome to the other seat. How does it feel?
Yeah, I'm worried I'm not asking in-depth enough questions. I'm worried I'm not like fully, considering all of the possible emotional outcomes that come with the questions.
Yes.
I'm worried that, and facilitation is like what leads. It's like,
no,
it's you're providing a framework for a conversation, and you're worried that you will inflict limitations upon it. Yeah.
But like, how much of that is also just what we do in any day conversation with anyone that we love?
Everything is constantly limited by our own perceptions.
Exactly. Like, can I say this? Can I give you a hug? Mm-hmm. Of like, is this socially normal? And it's just like, this is a different space feeling those same feelings of, can I ask that question? Yeah, you can. Yeah. I'm just going to keep doing this.
Yeah, and you're excellent at it.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job.
Super kind.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I want to barf as I say the things I say because I'm like, ew, who does she think she is? But that's just me not having self-compassion for what I'm doing. So I'm going to let that go. The perfectionist tendencies are really hard. The biggest thing I've learned as I create something is that before I get any feedback, I tell myself that everyone hates it.
Of course.
Yeah, and so then I just wait till enough people tell me they don't hate it. That's when I started to feel like I was doing it.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to a point where you listen to some of them though and you're like
proud?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. That's progress.
I cried in therapy about it. That's so cool.
That's really
and
cool.
I think
you said it was the first time you've been felt really proud of something.
People came back to me and were like, that first episode about sex, that changed how I talk about sex. I learned something. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And that was also when I helped, that same day is when I helped you do your first Son A.
Oh, yes.
And I felt like I was helping people like just become their full selves.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing.
Oh my God. That was such a good time.
Yeah, tell me about it. Because I think there's important wisdom in all of these small moments of how did you learn to teach yoga? Yeah,
that was so fun because my biggest fear in life is being perceived.
Yep.
I don't like to be in the spotlight. I love to like be the high energy person in the room, but like not the person that's saying the most things most of the time. Long story short, teaching does not fit align well with that personality
not
type.
at all.
Yeah, it doesn't, because
No.
I love to be a student too, and
Yeah.
like sometimes I'm like, teachers, what do they know? Like, you know, at what point do you decide that you know knowledge enough to show it to other people? So it's like I also have all these, like, you know, I'm constantly just questioning everything all the time.
Yeah.
But me deciding to like guide somebody else through movement is terrifying.
Yes.
But by God, I spent $600 on online yoga training. I should probably utilize it.
For sure.
But yeah. And then you were like, okay, we're just going to do this. And I was like, Nicole's got my back.
Yeah.
She's not going to make fun of me. And if she
No.
does, it'll be like in a cute way. And
Yes.
it won't like make me cry.
Mhm.
And it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it's the only way forward. Yeah. It's like, I can
Yes.
only either do it or not.
Yeah.
I can't keep thinking about it. And it was literally just talking you through a sun salutation, but you showed me like 5 different ways to do it basically
Yeah.
in a row. And I was like all warmed up, geeked up, ready to go, a little bit,
Yeah, you can say what it
a little bit stoned.
Yeah, this is your space. Yes.
And yeah, and then I felt like I was capable. And then we got off the phone. And I
Yeah.
did it like 5 more times, like
Amazing.
on a video recording. I went to upload it the next day, realized I was supposed to add cues, and I forgot. And then I haven't done it since. I need to go back and finish this, Nicole.
Oh my
I never
god!
got it done.
What is stopping you from recording it again?
I just got busy. It's
Yeah, that's
the
fair.
past
You
like
have a
month
lot.
has
You've
been
had a
trash.
lot.
So that's why I'm
Yes.
like, okay, I'll get to it. Now I know I can do it though. Now I know I can
Yeah.
literally go in there and pick it up one day when I'm ready. I just like
Exactly.
am getting better at not forcing myself to do things when I'm like, I'm really tired right
It's
now.
a beautiful thing. Rest.
Yes.
Rest is so needed. Exactly. I don't mean to get hippie woo woo, but I do because that's me. I think all of life's answers are in these small moments like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you learn to do something you thought you were incapable of doing?
I put myself in an uncomfortable position,
Yeah.
pushed a little bit, and then after a second of getting out of my head, I was in my body enough to just exist in the moment.
And
And it worked.
Yes.
I was able, there were things, and I didn't feel scared, and I felt like I did an okay job. You gave great affirmations.
right.
Enough to carry me forth.
That's support. We were
Yeah.
just watching the Midnight Gospel talking about that. He was talking about the pull-up, right? And you get the stretchy bands that make it
Yeah.
easier to do the pull-up because you had support. And then through that support, you get the strength to actually do a pull-up
Yeah.
on your own. And so, like, you have someone that sees you and says, we're going to do this. I think it's so crazy that society says that we all need to be alone.
Yeah.
And we take a lot of our mental health to be this, if I can't figure it out on my own, I'm weak.
Mm-hmm.
And dare I ask for a friend to help see me and like walk with me and hold my hand through this scary time? How
Yeah.
weak am I?
Yeah. And it's terrifying because you're like, look, see, whatever I'm posting online or however I perceive, like when we get coffee for, 45 minutes every 6
Yeah.
months, I'm giving you the highlight reel of my
Oh,
life.
for sure.
And it's like here in these vulnerable moments, it's like, can you see me suck at something really quick and just tell me that it's going to
Yeah.
be okay? Because that's like how all of it starts. Like,
Yeah. In those moments, I feel the most alive because I feel seen.
yeah.
Just to be that vulnerable. Like, I think of talking, like we were earlier too, about this, like, oh, when I was doing this, I was worrying about that. And meanwhile, you were worrying about something cosmically different.
Yes.
And both of us over here are just like, are you enjoying this time together? Because I'm nervous. Like, are you enjoying it? I'm enjoying it. Are you? Like, it's just like, we can't relax.
No.
I know.
And it's like, I don't know what that is where we're like always thinking that someone is coming from a place of like malice. It's almost like it's that.
Safety.
Have you heard of like the concept of main character energy? Like,
Oh, yeah, I have. Yeah.
I love it. And I feel like that's like the negative main character energy is when
Yeah,
you're
the
like,
antagonist.
everybody's just sitting there around thinking about how awful I am all the time. And it's like, no one's like,
I know.
yeah. Sometimes it's like, I don't feel that way about my friends. They're not thinking that way about me either. They're not constantly
Right.
questioning everything I'm doing.
As someone who has anxiety and would talk about this with my therapist, I literally would be like, I know that, Kelly, but they're talking about me and I know it.
Yes.
And like, that's anxiety brain, like
Yeah.
hard. It's insane. Like, we put up this strong wall that if I think about all the possible options and ways that people could hate me, then I will protect myself from them all. And in doing so, I've thought of a million ways I suck.
Yeah.
And now that's all I see.
and all the things that could possibly go wrong in my life, and I can list them all. And there's a highlight reel going on in my head. We talked about when you're in a good place and a bad place.
Oh, yep.
And when you're having a good day, you're like, oh, tee-hee, like the thought passes by much more quickly. But when you're a bad day, it's like, well, maybe that is the truth. And that is how I feel. And then it just like gets into that cyclical
cycle
pattern of like, I can't do anything. I'm horrible. I hate myself. Everyone hates me. And then how do you get back out of that,
Well, I don't know. That's the $1 million question, is how do you learn to change?
Yeah. And how do you stop the cycles, I guess, or interrupt them?
Like my understanding of mindfulness would say that like you acknowledge the thought when it comes, and that those days are going to happen where you feel that low point and you're like, I can't do anything. And you hear it and you hold it with no judgment and you say, that's a thought. I am way more than my thoughts.
Yes.
My thoughts are not me. And then you just let that go down the stream. A log on a river. I see you leaving. Goodbye.
Yes.
But that's the thing though, that's not what we do. We like see the log and then we're like, oh my God, how dare there be a log in my perfect river?
And you're the one that's studying these things, so correct me when I use these terms incorrectly. I have like kind of struggle with ruminating thoughts sometimes, and I know like sometimes people will like recommend like exposure therapy of like in those moments, but it's like very controlled, group wise, whatever.
For sure.
I've like kind of bastardized that method in my own way, and sometimes when I'm like I'm not actually a bad person, I'm a bad person, and then I'm just like, what if I am a bad person? I'm still a person who's doing a good job, and I still need to eat dinner right now, and I still need to go to bed, and I'm okay. And like that sounds extreme, but sometimes I'm just like, what if that thought is true, Kelly? You're okay.
I just want to normalize that is actually a thing to handle anxiety, is like, let's give it space and acknowledge what it's saying to us. I'm worried. Okay, what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
And then what will you do in that scenario?
I'll figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you keep that,
my brain's going to go to the worst case scenario.
Yes.
No matter what. So might as well just like, let's take the path there a little sooner. We'll analyze it while I'm still in this more rational mindset before I like completely like spiral with this thought, because I will do that. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but I will take something and run with it into the dark.
Yes.
And like if I can get while I'm still it's still dusk, like if I can stop it there and be like, maybe that's the truth.
Yeah.
Whatever, dude. Like, it's like one more thing. Like, life's gonna be fine. You could just be like chilling and eating snacks on the couch right now and not having a bad time. And that doesn't always sometimes you just like start bawling your eyes out and have a really bad time. But there are times where I'm like, I could just be hanging out with myself right now instead of berating myself for something that hasn't even taken place.
Exactly. But that's so hard.
Yes. It's the task of a lifetime.
Yeah.
The task that is never ending.
I was in therapy, and when my therapist told me that my anxiety might never go away, I cried.
Yeah.
Deeply. I'm such like a goal-getter. Give me a task, I'll do it. Give me something to learn, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I have anxiety, I'll figure it out. Her just telling me that might not be a possibility, I was just like, oh, fuck. Like, I have to deal with this for the rest of my life. Right? You learn to live with it, and you
develop different coping mechanisms, but there's still going to be shitty dark times of your life ahead. Like, it's just scary that we can't like will those things away.
No.
Health issues can come up, weird money, job, future, there's a whole lifetime. And it's terrifying because you're like, oh God, and I'm going to have to learn these same fucking 7 lessons. Like, there's the 4 agreements. There's probably like 7 major lessons that we all like constantly learn over and over and over again in life. I can name my like top couple, but
they talk about that being like one of the things of like self-awareness. People who are self-aware tend not to repeat the same habits again. And I was thinking about that. I was like, damn, like all these lives, like these lessons, like do I actually learn, or do I like just enact the same patterns over and over again?
does it reiterate it for you? Or
What do you mean?
Or like it's the same patterns, but it's like a new perspective. It's like, but like I feel like I zoom out.
Oh, for
like
sure.
if I'm, you know, it's like the microcosm example of this reality, and then like I'm like, oh, and then I have to apply that at this level in my thought process too, and then at this level, and then at this level. And sometimes I learn like sometimes the smaller ones are the ones that matter the most though too, and it's definitely not like a gradual thing, but it's like so many. I'm just rambling, but like
No, it sounds like you're talking about perspective.
Yeah.
And the importance of looking at things from different angles. And
Yeah.
that like color and everything in the world isn't black and white. There's a lot of gray. Is kind of what I was getting from what you were saying.
There's like so much metaphor for stuff, and like you can be like, God, I already learned this lesson. Why am I doing this again? And you can get shitty in the moment with yourself. Also, like I maybe wasn't even aware of this thought until right now, or I wasn't aware of this truth until right now. And it's easy to like combine everything as the same mistake of your past that you've had to learn over and over and over again. But it's also like, it's a different form of the lesson. You're kind of leveling up each time.
Yeah.
And getting better
Yeah.
at it, I guess.
For sure. Who the hell am I to have this podcast talking about all this stuff? And I just left a relationship that I would consider extremely unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me own up to like that space. Like, it's not like I feel like a phony. I feel very human, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still learning that lesson apparently because I just ended that, you know, like recently.
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
But like, I want to acknowledge that nobody knows everything ever.
I know.
Unfortunately, things still happen. The trick is that like you like caught on to it sooner and you felt safe and you didn't feel you were like making a mistake as much as maybe in the past.
Yes.
You know, like you felt empowered to make a decision for yourself.
Yes. It was so clear in the moment of what I was being presented with that I was just like, I'm never going to get the validation I want from this person.
Yeah. And you knew what you needed.
Yeah.
Which is huge. Isn't that like exponential growth though?
Yeah, I'm just saying it doesn't feel good.
I know it doesn't. I'm sorry you had to go through it.
No, I'm happy. Well, no, I'm happy. Like, if fire brings out this beautiful gemstone, I don't know what metaphor I'm going for there, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy to have learned that. I remember being a kid. I was an undergrad, and I was talking to my professors at the time. I was like, I don't know, I want to study English literature, but there's so many books. I'll never know all the books. I can't do it. I'll never read them all. That was a serious problem for me, that I might not know everything.
I love that.
Yeah,
You're
but
so smart.
I don't feel...
Yes. Yeah, just that lust for knowledge is so amazing.
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous, but I think just, coming to terms with the fact that, like, there will always be things that you can't know all of it. It's not even that you're trying to achieve that. I am. For a
good time, I was trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like, everything of what... Well, because, I mean, I feel like everyone's trying to do that to a degree. Like, what is your view of perfection? I think all of our views of perfection are just very different.
They are, for sure.
Depending on your society or culture, all these other pieces that tell you what's the perfect person to strive after. I'm just trying to let it go.
Yeah, it's definitely not existing in the moment.
No.
Because you're always considering future possibilities.
You're worried about being perceived. That's exactly what you said.
It's a fear of perception. I don't like to be perceived most of the time. Like, I love, like, perception-free moments of, like, aloneness, you know?
It's so interesting because you're worried about being perceived, but to be loved, you have to be seen.
Yeah. Well, I guess I like being perceived. I don't feel unsafe in the perception of the shared space of that anymore. I guess it's just with people. It's like in places I feel I'm at risk, and I always feel like I'm at risk, like most of the time.
Yes,
like
I'm a woman.
Yeah. So it's like I'm always like, why is everybody? What are they thinking about me?
I know we're talking about like being perceived. You have a lot of wisdom to share. I feel like
about perception, or just
about
in
your
general.
Perception about yourself as a sexual being, about yourself as a woman, about yourself learning and moving, your family.
Yeah.
So many different things that I feel like people could benefit from hearing about.
Let's talk. I love that. That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
I also feel the same about you.
Okay. Oh, thank you. How do you describe yourself? If you were... Oh, wait. Let me take that back, by the way. If you were to tell me the most positive, beautiful things about you, how would you describe yourself? Because I don't want the bullshit. Well, I'm like an okay person and like afraid to be proud of yourself. What are the things you're proud of?
Ooh, let's sit in this moment.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
This is
like,
terrifying.
Yeah, like maybe like 3 words.
Oh wow. I would say I'm radiant. Like I love that. Yeah. And I'm thoughtful.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree.
And I am loving.
Yes.
And I think those are my favorite things about myself. Probably.
Yes. And how did you learn to love those things?
I
know, yeah, it's like, still don't know, actually. I'm learning today.
I have a weird, like, I feel like a lot of people are like, well, no one really ever liked me. And then you know, when I was myself, people have always generally liked me for the most part. And it's kind of weird, but they usually don't like me for, like, who I think that I am. You know, it's like, I feel like ever since I was a kid, I was always easily, like, projected on. And, like, people will just kind of make up their own realities about me. And I never really that negative, but it's like, it's once that's established, I feel like I'm like, oh, that's my relationship with that person. Like, I can't, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like learning just to be like, I know who I am and I love myself. And then like being able to be that full self actually with new relationships or people that I've known for a while who had taken the time to get to know me. Yeah. Actually, yeah, it like kind of blossomed from there.
Certainly.
That's pretty, I don't even know if that makes sense, but.
I mean, it's your lived experience, so it makes a bunch of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing to say out loud, but it's like, yeah, I feel like I'm just now, I have always hated being perceived because I'm scared of how it will, like, what will be distorted in that way. And I think that I'm coming to a place where I feel much more confident in what I'm presenting, just with myself. I don't even know. That's back to perception and wanting to be perceived by people.
Well, right, because you're also perceiving yourself constantly.
Yes.
Yeah, like this. Yeah. Well, this is the conversation we were talking about earlier, right? Of like beauty. Yeah. It's like, do you see your own beauty? Do you feel beautiful? Any photo, a mirror, a picture is a 2-dimensional compressed image of you.
That does not capture your essence.
Literally.
Or like show the way your skin shines in the light and when you turn your head. Or, you know, the way, and it's like some of those can be seen through video, but like we said, it's not in the lived, it's not in the actual moment.
But then you have to accept that you will never see yourself fully. All these things that we try to say, like, oh, I look like this because this mirror, or I look like this because this picture, which are the only things we actually can cling to understand our visual self. But the problem is those are all 2-dimensional copies of our 4-dimensional being. And like 4 dimensions, who knows? Some spiritual person would be like, there's more. Like, you know what I mean? But like,
infinite dimensions.
But exactly, like these things we have are compressing them into these flat files. And we're like, at least this is me personally. Like my understanding of my concept of self has always been from like mirrors, pictures.
Yeah. You wonder what it was like before.
I don't.
Phones, recordings,
social media,
photos, and like, because so much of it is about like, how do I present outwardly? And you wonder if, I mean, we've always been part of like a collective tribe of humans and all of those things, and just like consumerisms in the past 100 years, all of those things, not past 100, but you know what I mean, like brands and all of these things. Like, there's so many ways to like lavishly present yourself outwardly that it's like, I wonder if those things were taken away, what the more innate human version of that would be. And would you wonder as much like about your outward look?
Have you ever deleted social media for a little bit of time?
Yeah,
how did that feel?
It's always so much better. I didn't have Instagram for like almost a year in college because I was like super depressed, and I was like, if I even get on this again, I will be this is not good. Comparison
is death. And it's just like a million perfect lives to look at.
That was like the first book I ever read on my own volition, was like a Jack Kerouac book, and it was like, comparison is odious. And that's always stuck with me.
It is.
But yeah.
The younger generations have an increased depression rates and anxiety and suicide. I mean, you watched The Social Dilemma.
Yeah, it's a whole algorithm of like manipulation.
And they talked about how it got worse since 2013 with social media.
Yeah, it's terrifying. You know, I remember like definitely way less intense now, but I remember every time I went to go do something, I would be like, okay, what picture will I get this day so that I can post it online again? And it's like, now I'm at this point where I'm like, oh, I'll put this on my story if it's funny in the moment. But it used to be like hours of like, not hours, but I would be like, oh, I'm going to the beach. I got to get a cool picture of me in my bathing suit. I was like, visualize what that picture would look like. I'm sorry you can't do that with your no picture.
Yeah, I have aphantasia, so I can't picture anything, but it's fine. Yeah, I have an idea of what it would feel like to be at the beach.
But yeah, you get this idea of what something would look like in your head, and then like you have to execute it, and then you're like, okay, I got it. Now I got to post it. Okay, now people are liking it. I got that rush. Yeah, oh God, now it's like, 24 hours after, and it's not getting any engagement, and the high is over, and nothing matters, and you wasted 3 hours of what could have been reality thinking about whether or not this picture was good enough for the internet or not.
And is that living?
Yeah.
I know. I was actually talking about this with some of my friends, this concept that specifically our age group had a very unique experience, because in our early childhood, the internet and social media was not necessarily a thing.
Yeah.
But it became a thing in our middle school and specifically a lot of early high school. And so our young childhood life was shaped by the internet, but not so much so that we didn't know what it was before.
Yes.
And so now our generation has always been living with it. Younger generations, like, they've had it since they were in like elementary school.
Yeah. They're seeing their moms post pictures of them online.
But we're the only people to live with it so close to be able to remember both, because the generation above us didn't have childhood with social media.
Yeah.
And the other generation the generation above didn't have social media during childhood, and the generation below has only ever had media and social media.
Or even like, I mean, there weren't even digital cameras when we were like kids. So it's like everything was developed. Like you recorded things with like VHS video recorders. Like it wasn't like just iPhones and like the capacity to just like snap pictures at any moment. It's just...
Because that changes forever how you perceive yourself.
Yeah.
Because now we can craft it.
Yeah, it's not like a one shot and go and you're like, oh, social media.
I know, sorry. We've talked about a lot of different things. But here's the thing. I think it's all related though, right? It's always all related. Because perception, we're talking about perception. We're talking about what an STI, the perception is of that, and like how other people perceive you. This is everything in life. We go through this world and community, which involves a level of perception always. The thing is, like, we feel most loved by the people who fully perceive us and fully see us who we are.
Yeah.
The fact that we can't always change other people's perception of us. All social media is trying to do is like, can I post this so that you think I'm this person that has this life?
Yes.
So then I can be accepted. All the while forgetting that, like, we can't change other people's minds. Like, that is
no,
we can.
And like, everybody's bringing such different lived experiences to the table that like some action or thing that you do may have an entirely different meaning or reality to them, that therefore,
for sure,
and it's like people perceive things very differently than each other, and it's so, that's what's so scary about it, because you're out of control. So it's like, that's why like social media is nice, because you can like have a tangible manipulation of reality that you can present to other people.
I know. It makes your eyes want to twitch. Just
what else is there?
Oh no. I mean, yeah. I know it's heavy. But it's also not. Just get rid of it, right? But now it's ingrained, and it's like our way of connecting to people.
It's even hard to be part of a community without social media. I have a friend at work who does not use social media, and they like come to me for like Black Lives Matter updates and like, you know, just like trainings or like protest stuff. That's how like people were able to spread the word about like, like bad heroin batches going around, or like Narcan trainings, or like food pantry needs and drop off locations. It's like there's so much of that that's able to like mobilize on social media that it's almost like, well, do I need to have a community social media and then just get rid of my personal one?
Well, yes.
Sometimes I think about just deleting my account that I have, because I have like 1,500 followers or something like that. And I'm like, I don't even know these people. They don't know me. Why the fuck do we follow each other?
Yeah, it is interesting that like when I think about it, all these random people follow me that I know tangentially or that I kind of do know, on a day-to-day, they don't matter to my perception of self.
Mm-mm.
But then to post something on there, I know that whole community that's going to see it.
And you want to see that they're liking it.
It's gross. Because it really doesn't matter.
Nothing matters. Yeah.
Nihilist over here. Whoa. Nothing at all.
I am totally that person. Like, that's what gives me solace. Like, that like, I'm gonna die. All of this is irrelevant. Life probably is a simulation. It's probably not a simulation, but what the fuck? Like, we're just meat sacks on a fucking space ball flying through sky. Like, you know, it's horrible. We have meat in our heads that has like electricity in it.
For sure, confusing.
That makes us feel horrible. And sometimes I'm like, what the fuck? It doesn't matter. And that gives me peace. I know that probably stresses a lot of people out.
Sure.
But I'm like, it doesn't like really. That comes and goes in my life, but nothing matters is kind of like a little mantra of mine. Sometimes when I'm in a better spot, I'm like, it's okay, Kyle. Nothing matters.
Well, that's why I have that quote on my fridge of there is no truth, there is only interpretation.
I love that.
Everything really is your own lived experience that is painting the color onto this world that you see.
Yeah. You are like the master manipulator of your own reality.
Everything you see is through your stimulus receiving brain. Literally nothing that you ever see will actually be the object in and of itself in its purest form, right?
Do you ever think about how like your perception of blue might be like what blue looks like
sure.
to you? Like that, just that, you know, it'll like, and then you go down the rabbit hole and it's like, we're all just living entirely different lives, but somehow connected, but somehow,
exactly.
So many of us too. There's so many people on Earth that like we can't even like fathom how many other humans there are.
There's so many and they're all in so much pain, and I'm doing a podcast over here. What the fuck am I doing? And why am I not saving people?
Yeah. What is anything? Like I work at a nonprofit that like, you know, we're all helping people.
Yeah.
We all have different jobs, whatever, to help people.
Right.
Different avenues. All of these things like play together into the one giant organism that is an entity that is helping people. But it's like, even within that organization, there is a hierarchy of like, well, I have this role that does this thing.
Right.
And you only have this role that only does this thing. But like, technically, we couldn't exist without the combination of the two or the many.
Like a structure and
and so it's like, just comparisons are odious, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, what can you do? You're doing what you can.
Yes.
That was long.
No, it's true. It's true. It's just like we're always just trying to navigate it. And I think that's one of the main thing that I feel like I'm getting like through a lot of these conversations with people. They're always just like, what do you want to normalize? Not knowing what the hell we're doing?
Yeah.
Like making mistakes and figuring it out, because like that's so much of just normal life. We fall so many times and then learn that lesson. And I'll probably fall on my face again, like maybe later today.
Yeah.
Like, and that's I'm probably going to fall on my face during this podcast, right?
Yeah.
That's just the inherent reality. It won't always be happy, but I will be there the entire way.
Yeah. You are here. It's like on a map.
But even not, right? That's a quantum mechanics thing where like the atom doesn't stay still, and if you look at the atom, it just like is in a different place. It's nuts.
I'm not that smart. Like the quantum
Why do
stuff.
you say that?
I can't wrap my head around it. Quantum.
No one can.
I guess more like I just go like black when people like black out when people start talking about it's like whoosh, just sails over my head. Like I don't even know if I have the capacity to like try to understand it in the moment. I like watching the Marvel movies. But
Yeah.
That's about
But
it.
I'm sure if you really wanted to, I'm sure you could. It's a language.
For sure. Yeah. I think I need to have just the interest in it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yes, interest. But like think about the yoga thing we talked about earlier. Like how did you start teaching yoga when you didn't think you had the capacity to? Like I'm sure you have the capacity to understand it if you wanted to. You just don't.
Yeah,
like,
I just don't want to. You're right.
Which is fine. But like then that language needs to change. Not of saying like I'm not smart enough to learn it. It's just like it doesn't pique my curiosity.
Right now I'm like, cool, of course it's really fucking complicated how things work.
Yeah, exactly.
Dope. Look at humans trying to figure it out again.
Exactly. Searching for the answers that are unknowable again.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll get really like dark about that stuff. I'm like, why can't we just let things be?
Yeah. Well, because then we wouldn't have any of the current marvels of
right.
modern science, and like we wouldn't be sitting on this because we would have died of cholera, like from a water supply.
Oh man. So now we have to understand the quantum universe
Well,
to protect us from... No, I'm just kidding. It's probably
Maybe.
that interconnected. Sorry.
No, but
yeah.
I think the thing is that we need to embrace science, but equally recognize that science might not have all the answers. And I think they all know that within the scientific community from a general standpoint, that we currently do not have any of the answers to understand the atom. So lots of theories right now. No idea.
Yeah, I love it.
We're like in a gray space in terms of science, when it used to be in this like black-white.
And now it's like, but wait, there's more.
Exactly, like one of those sales pitches.
Yeah.
If you buy this right now, you can get 2 for the price of 1.
And wait,
There's more.
There's a whole fucking
Jesus,
quantum
dates.
universe, and there might be multiple realities. Ha ha ha.
I know, but I think that's the point, right? Is like we look to science as like truth, answers, and equally science can't explain all of it as we stand. How do we learn to accept a space of unknowables? And I think I always keep coming back to a lot of this topic too, of embracing the unknown, embracing that we'll never see ourselves in 4 dimension.
Yeah.
We'll never see ourselves in our full essence. So don't judge yourself for those pictures, videos, or literally any way you look at yourself.
Mm-hmm. I almost said it again.
Yeah, what?
Nothing
Yeah,
No. No. It does. Everything does.
hilarious.
Yeah, but oh my gosh.
Do you feel like you have any lessons? I know like this is going to bring full circle, right? We started with HPV. Like, do you feel like you have any lessons? Anyone who's made it to this far of listening to this like wild Mr. Toad's wild ride of like our internal mind space.
Lessons of like
Rewarding them for staying along the journey.
Yeah. I think the biggest one, and I hate that it came from the like you said it earlier, it's part of the four agreements, but like I feel like I also think about it constantly. It's like I've just really learned to stop taking things personally. People are just fucking living just like me, and sometimes people are being nice and they make me mad.
Exactly.
And I don't like them for no reason, and it's just like it's the same. The more I turn inward and just like decide for myself how I'm going to perceive things, it really helps a lot. Because everybody's just going through their own stuff all the time.
Exactly. So the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything too personally, don't make assumptions, and do your best.
Snaps.
Some white girl shit. Like, you're just like, but actually though, I mean, like, how much could we learn from just taking all of that? Because I think that's what ultimately our conversation today was about, a perception. Don't take anything personally. Because we keep taking other people's perception of us personally. And we take our own perception of ourselves personally. We get mad at ourselves. I get mad at myself that I still have trauma that I haven't processed. I'm learning these lessons again and again. Let's not take it too personally.
Humans.
It's okay. Yeah, there's this stuff. It's okay. Like, yes, it's yes, and
it's great.
that sigh, and there's still good to it too. We're not going to negate either of it. A lot of it is work. A lot of it's super difficult, but there is a lot of joy, beauty, art, such beautiful things. Nature. You love trees. Like,
I love trees. Yeah, they're my favorite.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, if you got to deal with a little bit of self-doubt to be out with some trees sometimes, sounds like
for sure
we can manage. Well, the thing I have to ask you.
Oh God.
What is one thing that you wish other people knew was more normal?
I'm gonna go with play. Being in your body in the moment, taking a second and stopping, looking around and smiling at the sun, smiling at the trees. Like, it's great just to like be alive sometimes. And it's okay to take those seconds and stop thinking about things and just exist in the moment sometimes.
Are you telling yourself that as you say it out loud?
Yes, always.
I think that's a beautiful thing to normalize. Just learning to play.
Yeah.
So much of our society doesn't provide time, especially with like a capitalistic, production-based value system that we have. Like, it's really hard to just play and not be focused on what we're producing.
Like, it just forces you to be constantly on and obsessed with thoughts and all of these things. And if we give our cats and dogs, like, we know that playing is just a regular part of their day that's required for them to be happy and healthy. And it's like, same with us.
letting ourselves live. I mean, it's definitely a privilege to have time to do those things, right?
Yeah.
Taking the small moments that we do have to engage in that and not waste that time on social media and worrying about perception. Probably the key.
Oh God. And then we just talked about it for like 25 minutes.
Yeah, but it's important. All of it's connected.
Yeah.
I think like the thing is, it's like, oh, am I talking about something worthy enough? Everyone's on social media. So I promise you, if we're feeling these feelings, millions of other people are feeling this way.
Yes.
It's just like people are talking about it, right? But like not enough. Like it hasn't had enough space of like validity to talk about these things yet without people being like, oh, just stop, you're complaining. The internet is inherently shaping people's perception of self and is drastically affecting mental health.
Yeah.
Like
and taking free time from us. Yeah. And taking away our capacity to play because we're under the guise of all humans. Yeah. People are watching us and perceiving us constantly.
Oh, this has been really lovely. Is it weird to be the recipient of me saying that since you listen? Yeah. This has been a lovely conversation, Kelly.
Yes.
You brought a vulnerability that I think people will really resonate with.
I have no idea what I've even said, but I'm excited.
No, but you're a human and you portray just a small glimpse of what it is to be human, and everyone has a different perspective.
For sure.
And so, like, someone will resonate with what you say, I promise. Yes.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, then subscribe for new episodes released every Wednesday, and follow us on Instagram at Modern Anarchy Podcast, where we open up a dialogue about all of these topics. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. And a special thanks to one of my favorite artists, Yor Smith, for the intro and outro song to this show.